Before any dinosaur ever set foot on this planet, before any roar ever echoed through the primitive forests, there was something far worse. Something that made the ground tremble. Something that had no predator. Something that dominated the earth for so long that evolution itself seemed to have given up trying to create a rival for it. And the scariest part, most people have never heard of this creature. If you are watching this video right now, get ready, because what you are about to discover will completely change the way you see the history of life on Earth. Subscribe to the channel right now and hit the bell, because every single day there is a new secret from the past waiting for you here. 315 million years ago, the Earth was an unrecognizable place. There were no mammals. There were no birds. Reptiles had barely taken their first steps on the evolutionary ladder. And yet, there was an absolute predator walking through that strange world. Its scientific name is Arthropleura, and it was a myriapod, a distant relative of today's centipedes. But do not let that comparison fool you. Today's centipedes are small. Arthropleura measured up to 8 feet long, and some fossils suggest that larger specimens may have exceeded even that. Picture a centipede the size of a crocodile, with dozens of legs, a natural reinforced chitin armor, and the ability to move at surprising speed through dense forests. This animal had no natural enemies. None. It was the absolute top of a food chain that today looks like something straight out of a nightmare. The first fossils of this creature were found in the 19th century in Europe. Researchers were completely stopped in their tracks by the fossilized trackways it left behind. For years, nobody knew what had made them. The marks on the ground were too wide, too deep, too strange for any known animal. When scientists finally connected the clues and reconstructed the animal, the shock was enormous. How could something this size have existed and virtually disappeared from mainstream scientific memory? The answer lies in the way we tell the story of life on Earth. We always focus on the dinosaurs, the great mammals, the creatures that came after. But there was an entire world before them, and that world had its own monsters. The Carboniferous period, running from approximately 358 million to 298 million years ago, was the kingdom of giant invertebrates. And the reason for that gigantism was oxygen. Earth's atmosphere back then contained around 35% oxygen, compared to the 21% we breathe today. More oxygen means animal tissues receive more fuel, and many invertebrates which absorb oxygen directly through their bodies could grow to proportions that would be impossible today. It was not just Arthropleura. There were dragonflies with wingspans of nearly 3 feet. There were aquatic scorpions exceeding 6 feet in length. It was a world where insects and their relatives ruled, and Arthropleura was the undisputed queen of that kingdom. But this is where the mystery begins. Because this animal simply vanished, and for a long time nobody knew exactly what had happened. The most widely accepted theory today points to a drop in atmospheric oxygen levels. As the climate changed, the great Carboniferous forests began to die off. Without the forests, oxygen levels fell, and without elevated oxygen, the gigantism of invertebrates became unsustainable. Arthropleura could not adapt. Its evolved rivals, the first reptiles, were getting bigger, smarter, and more efficient. Somewhere between the Carboniferous and the Permian, this giant disappeared, leaving no recognizable descendants, no lineage that could give us any idea of what might have been. But what researchers have discovered recently goes far beyond simply understanding the past. In 2022, scientists on the island of Northumberland in England found an extraordinary fossil, a molted piece of Arthropleura's external armor, preserved in rocks roughly 326 million years old. It was the largest fossil ever found from this animal in the United Kingdom, measuring around 30 inches in length, representing only a single segment of the complete body. Researchers estimated that the animal this molt came from was probably over 8.5 feet long. What stunned the scientific community was the quality of the preservation and what it revealed about the animal's diet. Contrary to what many had assumed, more recent evidence suggests that Arthropleura may have been primarily herbivorous, feeding on the rich Carboniferous forests. That makes its dominance even more unsettling. It was not a ferocious predator. It was a calm giant that simply had nothing to fear. And here is the part that intrigues paleontologists the most today. If an animal this size existed for so long, if it was so perfectly adapted to its environment, if nothing could threaten it, what does that tell us about mass extinctions? Because Arthropleura survived minor climate shifts, survived changes in vegetation, survived pressures that wiped out other animals around it. But when the changes became too great, not even the largest animal of its time could hold on. It is a lesson that echoes uncomfortably with what we are watching happen to Earth's climate today. Gradual changes do not kill immediately, but when they cross a threshold, extinction can be fast, final, and it does not care how big or powerful you are. Researchers are still trying to determine whether other species from the same family survived longer in other regions. There are fossil fragments in other parts of Europe and North America suggesting the group may have persisted in isolated pockets for longer than previously thought. Perhaps in humid, sheltered forests where oxygen levels were locally higher, small populations held on for tens of millions of additional years. But these are only clues. The full picture is still being assembled, piece by piece, fossil by fossil, in laboratories around the world. What makes the story of Arthropleura so fascinating is not just its size or its dominance, it is what it represents. Before the dinosaurs, before the mammals, before everything we associate with complex life on Earth, there was a completely different world. A world where the rules were different, where the evolutionary winners were creatures that would look entirely alien to us today. And that world was so completely erased by the events that followed that it takes careful excavations, sophisticated chemical analysis, and decades of research just to scratch the surface of what existed there. Earth has a history far longer and far stranger than any of us can truly comprehend. And every fossil found is a window into a past that changes everything we thought we knew. Arthropleura was the largest land animal without a backbone ever recorded. But who can guarantee it was the largest that ever existed? Who can guarantee that somewhere, buried in an unexcavated slab of Carboniferous rock, something even larger, even more extraordinary, is not waiting to be found? The answer may be closer than we think, and when it comes, it will shake paleontology all over again. Subscribe to the channel right now so you do not miss that moment. In the next video, we're going to talk about the marine creature that existed before sharks and turned the primitive ocean into a place where no living thing was truly safe.